With me now, Republican Congressman representing Texas 27th District, Blake Farenthold. Congressman Farenthold, thanks for being here, sir.
Oh, great to be with y'all.
All right, Congressman, tell me what's going on the Hill. I mean, you were supposed to have a vote today. The vote's been postponed. What's going on?
I think there's still some last-minute negotiations going on with the Freedom Caucus to make the bill even better. I think we're going to see it happen, but I think it's going to be tomorrow. The House Republicans are going to meet in about an hour and a half to talk over what's happening, and tentatively there's a procedural vote set for 8 o'clock Eastern tonight.
All right, and talk to me about these changes, because as we know, the House Freedom Caucus takes issue with this bill. They call it Obamacare Light. I know that name was dubbed in the Senate by Senator Rand Paul, but what changes do you think that President Trump and Paul Ryan would be willing to make?
Well, I think they're going to try to roll some of the things that they were going to do administratively through Secretary Price into the actual bill. The problem is you've got to be careful on two fronts. When you do more things that the House conservatives are going to like, you run the risk of losing some of the more moderate members. The other risk is that if you try to do something that isn't financial in nature, you run afoul of what's called the Byrd Rule in the Senate. And if you run afoul of the Byrd Rule, it can't pass with just 51 votes. It requires a 60-vote cloture.
Right. So talk to me about these details then, because from what I see, and I actually agree with this, I agree with the House Freedom Caucus on this bill. I don't think in its current form that it's going to replace Obamacare in a very good way. But talk to me about which of these issues would become an issue in the Senate with the Byrd Rule. And the first of that is the 30% penalty that insurance companies would levy against people if they let their coverage lapse and then they rejoined their coverage, whether that has to do with the exchanges in the states being there, the $100 billion fund, or the tax credits. Any of those four things?
Well, I think there's also the idea of what the minimum amount of coverage that you have to have. That's done right now administratively at HHS. I think they want to incorporate that in the law. I think you start getting close to running afoul of the Byrd Rule there. The whole 30% quote penalty is a system designed to keep people from going and not buying insurance until they actually need it. You know, imagine in car insurance, wouldn't it be nice if you could go and buy car insurance after you had your wreck? So
right.
The idea behind insurance is you've got to have it before you need it.
Right, and that's understandable in a sense. Talk to me about the political aspect here, because sitting not in the heart of D.C. as I am, just sitting in California as one of the American people, it seems to me that there's a lot more politics going into this thing than there ought to be, with President Trump threatening the members of the House Freedom Caucus that they could lose their seats if they don't support this bill. At the same time, we have the Koch brothers pledging, millions and millions of dollars to members of the House Freedom Caucus if they do vote against this bill. How much is that impacting the negotiations that are happening?
Well, I mean, there is obviously some politics associated with it, but almost every Republican ran on replacing Obamacare. So we have got to get something that everybody can get behind. And a bill that President Trump supports and is willing to sign and is willing to fight for in the House and the Senate basically is the only train in town. The Trump repeal train is the train that's going to get us out of Obamacare. And remember, this bill isn't the end-all, be-all. This is just the first part of it. So once this happens, the Health and Human Services Secretary, Dr. Price, former congressman, very conservative, is going to rewrite a bunch of regulations to help bring costs down. And then there's going to be a series of legislation to allow insurance sales across state lines and make other changes, all of which will require 60 votes in the Senate. Now, once we've broken Obamacare with this first deal and gotten rid of it through the financial end of it, it's going to be much more easier for Democrats to come in and say, all right, Obamacare's gone, let's come up with something that works for everybody.
I don't know about that. I mean, from where I sit, it seems the Democrats want Republicans to fail at this. They're not going to be willing to come to the table. But Congressman, you mentioned that the Trump train is the only way to repeal Obamacare at this time. What's been happening the last 7 years in the House of Representatives? I mean, why not start with a good, solid, full repeal of Obamacare, present a fully conservative, free market-based, you pay for yours, I pay for mine type of proposal here? Why not start with that and then negotiate instead of starting halfway already towards Obamacare?
Listen, I agree with you 100%. I think the first bill we passed out of the House should have been a complete repeal of Obamacare, no questions asked. It wouldn't have gone anywhere in the Senate, but it would have shown our commitment, and we could have started negotiating from there. I think there was a little strategy error early on, but remember, every Republican is supportive of getting rid of Obamacare, and we've got to find a way to do it. Listen, I'm not in love with this bill, but we've got to get rid of Obamacare, and this is a good start.
Right. Well, let me ask you then, why not just wait? Why the rush to get it done tomorrow? If there was a strategic error at the beginning, if they should have started closer to free market and not as close to Obamacare, why not pull the bill back, say, you know what, this actually isn't what we want to do. We want to take a week or two or a month or two and restructure this, and then we'll bring you a good proposal. Why this rush to cram it through?
All right, so there's a time crunch associated with it because the Senate reconciliation requiring only 51 votes. This is actually reconciliation of fiscal year 2017 budget that we're already in the middle of. So we're using this vehicle to repeal Obamacare, and we've got to finish that before we can start our next 51 vote, the 2018 budget, which is how tax reform is going to happen. And that's something President Trump and I are both very eager to get to. So we've got a timeline to get this done so we can then move on to the 2018 budget. And there's an absolute deadline. We can't do a 2017 budget after fiscal year 2017 is done.
Right, that would be a stretch even for the government. Congressman, keep us updated on how this plays out. I thank you so much for being here, sir.
Happy to be with you. Call us anytime.